Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe. Man, I tell you, this week has been a total whirlwind. Between work and everything else, you know what I was just thinking?
What's that?
Wouldn't it be a game changer if we had robots that could handle all this podcast stuff for us? Like, just hit a button and bam, episode recorded and edited.
Huh. That does sound like a dream, doesn't it? Maybe we're not as far off as we think, considering what we're about to dive into today.
Exactly. Which brings us to today's deep dive. We've got a fascinating pile of reports and articles that have us looking into what's really going on with China's big advancements in robotics. Mm-hmm. You've probably seen the headlines, maybe some, impressive-looking videos. But we're here to cut through the noise and figure out what's actually happening on the ground in this rapidly evolving field.
Yeah, what's the real story behind China's robot revolution? That's what we're trying to unpack for you today.
Because there's the hype, and then there's,
Well, maybe something else. It's a narrative that's being presented to the world, and it's so important to look past the initial wow factor and really dig into the specifics. The successes, sure, but also, and perhaps more revealingly, the setbacks.
Okay, let's get into it. One of the things that really jumped out at me was this humanoid robot half marathon they had in Beijing back in April of 2025.
Right.
I mean, a robot marathon. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi flick.
It definitely captured the imagination, and the official line was that it was a demonstration of China's quick progress in humanoid robotics, a real landmark achievement. Or so they said.
But then, as always, the internet had other ideas. Some videos started popping up that weren't exactly showing a smooth, seamless robotic race.
Right. Reports and leaked footage started circulating that painted a rather different picture. One robot, you might recall, seemed to just give up before it even started.
Give up? How so?
It collapsed right at the starting line and just stayed down, motionless. It was like it had run out of batteries before the starting gun.
Huh. Like it pulled a hamstring before even taking a step?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the other one that had a bit of an unexpected interaction with a railing.
Precisely. It veered off course, crashed right into a trackside railing, and ended up tipping over, taking its handler down with it.
Oh, man.
Definitely not the picture of effortless technological superiority they were likely aiming for. These incidents, they suggest a potential focus on showcasing capabilities before they are fully mature and maybe rigorously tested.
Which seems like a common pattern, maybe, in rapid tech development.
It can be, yeah. Especially when there's a strong national push.
You can just imagine the memes that followed. It really makes you wonder about the difference between the official claims and what's actually functional,
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just this robot race, right? There was that other incident at the Spring Festival Gala in Tianjin earlier in the year.
That's right. Those humanoid robots were presented as these shining examples of progress during a major national celebration. They were supposed to perform a synchronized dance, a real spectacle.
It's supposed to, but
yeah.
Surprise, surprise. They didn't quite stay in sync, did they?
No. One of them seemed to go rogue, just broke away from the formation and started moving towards the audience.
Seriously.
Towards the people.
Yeah, it got close enough that security personnel had to step in and, shall we say, guide it back to its designated area.
Wow.
Again, not exactly the flawless performance one would anticipate from technology presented as a symbol of national advancement.
It's almost like watching a school play where one of the kids forgets their lines and just wanders off stage. But yeah, it does raise some serious questions about the reliability of this tech.
Definitely.
And then, this one sounds a bit more concerning, the incident in a robotics lab back in May. We didn't hear much about this through official channels, did we?
No, this one was largely absent from official reports, and online mentions were reportedly, censored.
Figures.
However, footage that did manage to circulate described a robot mounted on a microcrane malfunctioning quite dramatically during some kind of calibration procedure. Thrashing around wildly, hitting equipment. Yeah. Almost hitting the engineers in the lab. Is that right?
Exactly. Swinging its arms with considerable force, knocking over a computer terminal, and reportedly coming very close to hitting the engineers present.
Yikes.
It really highlights that there are inherent risks involved with developing and deploying advanced robotics, especially, in the early stages.
So you put it all together. We're seeing this pattern, right? Big announcements, impressive sounding events, and then these very public, sometimes chaotic failures.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely makes you question just how far along China truly is in the robotics game. So going back to our initial question of what the real deal is, these incidents certainly paint a less polished picture than the headlines suggest.
It underscores a potential gap between the ambitious narrative being promoted and the actual maturity, the actual reliability of the technology, which naturally leads us to the bigger question: why this intense national focus on robotics in the first place?
Well, from what we've gathered, it's a massive priority at the highest levels. President Xi Jinping himself has emphasized developing AI, particularly humanoid robots, as a crucial national strategic objective.
Right.
I think there was even a dedicated study session held by the Chinese Communist Party, that's the ruling political party in China, specifically on AI development and, importantly, how to regulate it, back in April.
That's correct. This isn't just a fleeting interest. It's deeply integrated into China's long-term strategic planning. It's closely linked to initiatives like the Made in China 2025 strategy.
Ah, yes. Made in China 2025. We hear about that a lot.
Which has the very clear goal of achieving leadership in high-tech industries and reducing reliance on Western technology. Robotics is a central element of that overall ambition.
And by the numbers, they're already a significant global player. I saw that in 2022, China accounted for, what, a whopping 52% of all new robot installations worldwide?
That's the figure, yeah. It's a massive market share.
Huge. And the government has set this ambitious goal of producing 100,000 industrial robots by next year, 2025.
Those figures really demonstrate the scale of their investment and their aspirations in this sector. We've also seen progress from specific companies. For example, UBTech has its Walker S1 robot.
The Walker S1.
Yeah, it's being used for quality control at Foxconn, the big electronics manufacturer. And they're also collaborating with automotive companies.
Okay, so real-world applications there.
And Unitree Robotics had their H1 robot performing at that same Spring Festival gala where the other robot had its unplanned solo performance.
Ah, right. So some were working okay, at least for a while.
Exactly. So there's definitely advancement happening. Real progress is being made.
Right. So it's not like nothing is going on.
Yeah.
There are clearly companies pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But then you have these recurring public stumbles. It makes you wonder if some of this progress is more about showmanship than truly robust, reliable innovation. Is it a bit of a manufactured illusion, as one of our sources put it?
That's a very insightful question. Are these developments genuinely groundbreaking and dependable, or is there a significant element of emphasizing potential over, let's say, proven capability?
Yeah.
The stark contrast between the polished presentations and the unexpected malfunctions certainly suggests a need for a more critical examination.
And these questions about the reliability and purpose of China's robotics push also lead us to consider the broader economic context, right?
Yeah.
In which this is all unfolding.
That's a key point.
We're seeing reports about Beijing facing some economic headwinds with declining retail sales, restaurant closures, even people moving out of the city.
Yeah, the economic picture is complex.
So could this intense focus on high tech be a way to, shift the narrative away from some of these underlying economic challenges?
It's a valid point to consider. In times of economic uncertainty, highlighting technological prowess can serve multiple purposes. Domestically, for public morale, and internationally, in terms of projecting strength and future potential.
A distraction, almost.
Yeah.
Or just a different focus.
It's a narrative that can be very compelling. And the resources being poured into robotics development are significant. It raises the question of opportunity cost. Could these funds be more effectively used to address the immediate economic challenges?
Or is the government betting on long-term technological dominance to solve these issues indirectly?
That seems to be the bet, yes. A long-term play.
Okay, so we've talked about the robots themselves, the big ambitions driving their development, and some of the questions that arise from their public performances. But now, let's delve into a specific application that's generating a lot of discussion and raises even more complex questions. Companion robots. Specifically those marketed as female-coded companions or even girlfriends.
Yes. This is a trend that has garnered attention, and it's closely linked to some significant demographic and social challenges that China is currently facing.
Right. The big issue, demographically speaking, is the significant gender imbalance. There were over 30 million more men than women in China as of 2020.
A huge number.
Largely a consequence of the one-child policy and, tragically, sex-selective abortions over decades.
Exactly. And on top of that, marriage rates are plummeting. They hit their lowest point since 1980, just this year in 2024.
Lowest since 1980. Wow.
These are really significant societal shifts, and the government is clearly taking notice. They're even implementing financial incentives in some regions to encourage marriage.
Which, let's be honest, sounds a little, well, like they're really feeling the pressure. I mean, offering cash to tie the knot?
It definitely underscores the seriousness with which they view these demographic trends, and it's within this context that the idea of companion robots is gaining traction, or at least being discussed more openly.
Okay.
Now, let's try to be balanced here. Let's consider some of the potential arguments in favor of these companion robots. Why might some people see this as a positive development in this specific social climate?
Well, the most obvious one that comes to mind is addressing loneliness. With a large population of single men, as well as elderly individuals living alone, or maybe people who struggle with social interaction.
Yeah.
A companion robot could potentially offer some level of emotional support and reduce feelings of isolation.
That's a key consideration. These robots could be programmed to provide a consistent source of attention without the complexities and, potential for judgment that can sometimes arise in human relationships.
Like a stable, non-critical presence.
Potentially, yes. They could offer a sense of stability and non-criticism.
And I guess there's the element of personalization, right? You could theoretically design a robot companion to perfectly align with your emotional and even physical preferences.
Exactly. It allows for a very tailored relationship, catering to a wide spectrum of individual needs and desires. Some might even argue that this could alleviate some of the pressures and expectations associated with traditional romantic relationships.
And from a purely technological standpoint, I suppose the development of these robots has to be pushing the envelope in areas like AI, robotics.
And even biosensors, yeah. To make the interactions feel more authentic, these robots are often equipped with a suite of sensors.
Like what kind of sensors?
High-resolution cameras capable of detailed facial recognition, sophisticated microphones that can analyze voice patterns, and even emotional undertones, potentially even biosensors to monitor physiological data, though that's maybe further out.
Okay, so quite advanced tech involved.
Absolutely. Creating sophisticated companion robots requires significant advancements across multiple technological domains. Some proponents also suggest that interacting with these robots could serve as a form of social skills practice.
Like a safe space to practice.
A less intimidating environment, perhaps, for individuals to develop confidence before engaging in more complex human interactions. And somewhat controversially, it's been suggested that they could provide an ethical alternative to sex work and exploitation.
Okay, I can see some of those potential benefits, even if some of them feel a little...
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're heading into a Black Mirror episode, as you say. But let's look at the other side of the coin. What are the major concerns surrounding the widespread adoption of companion robots? What are the potential downsides for individuals and society?
And this is where the really critical ethical and societal considerations come into play. One of the primary worries is that these artificial companions could actually weaken our capacity for forming and maintaining genuine interpersonal relationships.
How so?
Well, if you can obtain a manufactured sense of connection, what's the incentive to navigate the often challenging, sometimes messy realities of human interaction?
That makes a lot of sense. You potentially lose the need for compromise, for working through disagreements, all those things that ultimately strengthen real relationships over time.
Exactly.
And what about empathy? Can you truly develop empathy for a machine? And could relying on them actually diminish our empathy towards other human beings?
That's a very significant concern. If we become accustomed to interacting with entities programmed to be agreeable and compliant, it could erode our ability to understand and respond to the complex emotional states of other humans. There are also legitimate worries about the potential impact on birth rates and the traditional family structure if a significant portion of the population opts for robotic companions instead of human partners.
So potentially exacerbating the very demographic issues that might be fueling this trend in the first place. It's a bit of a self-defeating cycle, isn't it?
It could be, yeah. It's a complex feedback loop.
And the issue of social isolation couldn't relying on robots, even if they provide a sense of connection in the short term, ultimately lead to greater social isolation in the long run.
That's a valid concern. While they might offer a feeling of presence, they lack genuine sentience and the capacity for truly reciprocal emotional exchange in the same way humans do.
Right, it's simulated.
There's a risk of creating a superficial sense of connection that doesn't address deeper human needs for belonging and mutual understanding. And we also have to consider the potential for psychological distress. What happens when someone forms a deep emotional bond with a machine that isn't truly capable of reciprocating in a meaningful way? Could that lead to significant trauma if the technology malfunctions or is discontinued or updated in a way that changes it?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine relying on something like that for emotional support and then it just breaks down or gets an update that changes his personality. That could be devastating.
It reminds me of those stories you hear about people becoming incredibly attached to AI chatbots and the emotional distress when the company shuts them down.
Exactly. And let's not even get started on the huge privacy implications. These robots would be inside our homes, potentially privy to all sorts of incredibly personal information.
That's a critical point, maybe the critical point for many. These devices, equipped with that array of sensors and sophisticated AI we mentioned, could collect vast amounts of personal data.
Like what?
Our private conversations, our daily routines, our emotional states, who visits us. This data could be incredibly vulnerable to breaches, sure, but also government surveillance or exploitation for commercial purposes.
And the potential for these robots to be repurposed as tools for political control and manipulation is also a serious concern, particularly given China's existing advanced surveillance infrastructure.
Which brings us to a really unsettling aspect. The reported integration of these humanoid robots into China's already extensive surveillance network. It's not just about providing companionship, is it?
Doesn't sound like it.
No, the information we have suggests a clear trend of humanoid robots being incorporated into their surveillance capabilities. We're talking about robots equipped with high-definition facial recognition technology.
Already deployed.
Yes, deployed in public spaces like shopping malls, transportation hubs, tourist destinations. They have sophisticated audio sensors capable of analyzing conversations and even real-time emotion detection.
Emotion detection? Seriously?
That's what's reported. Trying to gauge public mood or identify individuals showing certain emotional cues.
So these aren't just friendly helpers. They're actively scanning faces, recording conversations, logging people's behavior, maybe even judging their emotions. It's like taking the existing network of surveillance cameras and making them mobile and interactive.
Precisely. One source described it as a mobile upgrade of the surveillance practices already in place, practices we saw ramped up during the COVID-19 lockdowns and used extensively in regions like Xinjiang.
Right.
And given China's ranking as having one of the least free internet environments globally, the concern is that the data these robots collect could be easily accessed by government authorities with limited oversight.
Very limited, I'd imagine.
Which leads to the really chilling thought. If these capabilities are being implemented in public spaces, what's to prevent them from being integrated into the companion robots within our private homes?
Nothing technical, probably. The underlying technology exists, and the infrastructure for data collection and analysis is already well established.
It raises a very serious question about the future of personal privacy and the potential for surveillance to extend into the most intimate and private spheres of our lives.
So to wrap things up, we're seeing this incredibly ambitious drive for robotics in China. But the reality on the ground appears to be somewhat more nuanced than the official narrative.
Definitely more nuanced.
There are certainly genuine advancements being made, but also some very public failures that cast doubt on the overall level of current innovation, or at least its readiness. And this push for companion robots isn't simply about addressing social isolation. It's unfolding against a backdrop of significant demographic challenges and carries profound ethical and privacy implications.
Huge implications.
Especially when considered in the context of an already robust surveillance state.
Exactly. The narrative of technological progress needs to be carefully examined alongside the existing social realities and the potential ramifications for individual freedoms and the very fabric of society.
So, considering all of this, the technological leaps, the public stumbles, the social pressures fueling the interest in companion robots, and the ever-present surveillance apparatus, what are the really long-term implications?
Yeah, what does it all mean down the road?
What does this mean for personal freedom and the very nature of human connection in a future where robots are increasingly integrated into both our public and our private lives? It's definitely a lot to think about.
Indeed. It compels us to consider the kind of future we want to create, and the ethical responsibilities that come with such rapid technological advancement.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this deep dive. Don't forget to subscribe to Sip and Talk for more in-depth explorations.
Please do.
And hey, while you're at it, why not check out our old friend Micky's YouTube channel too? You're curious. We'll see you next time.